Tonight, a vote of no confidence as Melbourne's case average creeps back into double digits. Also tonight, spreading the love. Donald Trump holds a packed rally in Florida.
I'll kiss the guys and the beautiful women and everybody. I'll just give you a big fat kiss.
George Pell meets the Pope during a private audience at the Vatican. And excited Brisbane fans snap up the lion's share of finals tickets. Good evening, Tamara Oudyn with ABC News. Melbourne's 14-day case average has crept back up into double figures, but a leading epidemiologist says it is now safe enough to push ahead with significantly easing lockdown rules next week. Deakin University's Catherine Bennett is urging the state government to focus on the relatively low number of mystery cases each day. But more than 9 months after Melbourne's first case of the virus, health workers are still worried about infection control in hospitals. James Hancock reports.
From living under lockdown to living with the virus.
I don't think we should be fearful.
The state government has flagged it will ease more of Melbourne's tough coronavirus rules at an announcement on Sunday, a week earlier than initially planned. Step 3 of the roadmap out of lockdown includes no limits on leaving home, outdoor gatherings of up to 10 people, and reopening hospitality and retail.
Those that are safe we will proceed with, and there may be some others that we believe are safe that were not necessarily foreshadowed at that time.
The 5 kilometre rule could also be scrapped.
Yes, it's up for consideration, as is everything.
Epidemiologist Catherine Bennett believes it is safe to take the third step.
The area of risk within step 3 that you could hold off for another week or two potentially would be having people into your home.
She says the focus must be on mystery cases in Melbourne, rather than the city's 14-day case average, which has inched higher to 10, double the government's target for taking the next step. There have been 13 mystery cases in the last fortnight. One of the latest has been found in postcode 3024, which includes Wyndham Vale, and another in 3025, Altona North. Of the 12 cases detected yesterday, 1 is from an outbreak linked to Chadstone Shopping Centre, and 7 could be related to a cluster at Box Hill Hospital. A senior doctor who wishes to remain anonymous says the hospital is still lacking a range of infection control measures, like fit testing of N95 face masks. She says staff are moving between wards, and those looking after coronavirus patients are the only ones being tested once a week. But the hospital insists changes have been made and further safety measures are planned.
This is a universal problem. I couldn't single out Box Hill Hospital as being particularly an outlier. I think it's typical of most other hospitals.
The state's health department has been urged to issue firmer instructions to hospitals.
There are very, very many more health service boards in Victoria, which allows a greater degree of variation.
Workplaces that can't be locked down remain the biggest barrier to opening up. James Hancock, ABC News, Melbourne.
As pressure grows on the government to do more to reopen Melbourne, the focus is on the state's contact tracing and testing system, which will be responsible for stopping future outbreaks from spiralling into a third wave. It's now more stringent than ever and has helped to suppress numerous cases, especially in Kilmore. But as Ben Knight reports, there are big questions about why that didn't happen before.
Back on September 21st, Victorians had a spring in their step. The number of new cases was back down in single digits for the second day running.
This is not just a good day, this is a great day.
But it was also the day the cluster that would derail Victorians' hopes of emerging from lockdown was beginning its spread, when a cleaner living in Frankston among sick family members went to work at a butcher shop in Chadstone. That cluster has now resulted in 40 cases, not just in Chadstone, but in Ashburton, Oakley, Cranbourne West, Melton and Kilmore. In Kilmore, contact tracing has been fast, broad and effective. Nearly 1,000 people have been tested. Nearly 400 have gone into isolation. Not just people who visited the cafe, but all their close contacts, including people they lived with. That outbreak now appears to have peaked at 6 cases. But that's not what happened here in Chadstone. And it does appear there were some missed opportunities, beginning with the cleaner who was told not to come to work. Now, contact tracers are trained to ask people about their work, and they are on particular alert for high-risk jobs like cleaning. But for some reason, the connection wasn't made with the Butchers Club, which didn't find out about the risk for another 4 days, and only then when its staff member tested positive. And 2 days after that, a close contact of another Butcher Club employee hadn't yet been told they were at risk when they stopped off for breakfast at a cafe in Kilmore and infected a staff member, sparking the massive contact tracing response. So why hasn't the more intensive Kilmore model of contact tracing been used before?
There is a burden for contacts of contacts to be isolating. We've got hundreds of people isolating in Kilmore. I think they accept that as a legitimate and proportionate measure to control that outbreak.
You would have had, I would guess, significant public support for an approach like you're taking in Kilmore. Why was it not done in the initial stages of Frankston and Chadstone to be phased in?
So an approach of testing every single asymptomatic person is not value for money and is not necessarily a proportionate approach. We're talking about a number of shops in Chadstone where people hadn't gone anywhere near any of those exposure sites, and so to open it up to every single asymptomatic person would not necessarily have been proportionate.
The bottom line is the new, tighter approach is now being phased in Victoria. Ben Knight, ABC News.
State Parliament is tonight debating a motion of no confidence in the Premier over his handling of the coronavirus pandemic. It was introduced by the opposition leader but is unlikely to succeed, with the government holding a clear majority. Here's State political reporter Bridget Rollison.
It was the first time the Premier entered Parliament since being accused of throwing his former health minister and top public servant under the bus.
I wish to advise the House of changes to the ministry.
The heat was immediately on Daniel Andrews as the opposition introduced a motion for a vote of no confidence in a bid to oust him from office.
They've had an avalanche of amnesia. They've had a cavalcade of cover-ups. They've had a litany of lies.
The opposition only gets one chance to move the motion before the 2022 election, with a limit of one per term. And Michael O'Brien took full advantage with an hour-long tirade.
How many more months do you need? How many more cases do you need? How many more deaths do you need before you just fix up contact tracing?
But the opposition never had the numbers, and the Premier left the chamber for the debate, allowing his deputy to mount a defence.
Petty politics being put ahead of public health.
He and the cheap politics that he trades in is of no consequence when it comes to fighting this virus.
The hotel quarantine debacle continues to dog the Premier, a day after the sensational resignation of his right-hand man, Chris Eccles. Daniel Andrews was again interrogated about why we don't know the answer to the key question everyone's asking.
Premier, isn't it a fact the only office with the authority to inform DPC that private security would be used instead of police is your private office?
No.
Order.
But the opposition's facing criticism of its own, accused of whipping up hysteria and fear.
We're seeing the rise of Trump-style politics being used by the Liberals, and I'd say to them they need to seriously pull their head in if they want to be taken seriously.
The upper house is debating the government's omnibus bill with a new push to scrap Melbourne's controversial 5-kilometre limit. The opposition's introducing an amendment to dump the travel restriction, claiming it's not based on science. Bridget Rollison, ABC News, Melbourne.
More than 4,000 teachers will be recruited back into classrooms next year as part of an initiative to help Victorian students affected by the pandemic. Tutors will be available to help more than 200,000 students at risk of falling behind after months of remote learning. The $250 million package will include almost $210 million for public schools and $30 million for disadvantaged students in non-government schools.
My message to retired teachers, pre-service teachers, casual relief teachers, we want you and our kids need you. And my message to parents and carers, if your child has fallen behind, we will bring them back up to speed.
Additional workers will also be recruited to help Indigenous students and those who speak English as a second language. Sheena Watt has made history by becoming the Labor Party's first female Indigenous MP in the Victorian Parliament. Ms Watt was sworn in as an Upper House MP for the Northern Metropolitan region, filling the role left by former Health Minister Jenny Mikakos.
I declare that Ms Sheena Watt has been chosen to occupy the vacant seat in Redcliffe Council.
Ms Watt was given a standing ovation and says she's honoured and humbled by the opportunity. With just 3 weeks to go until the US election, a campaign of sorts has resumed. While Joe Biden addressed supporters in cars at a rally in Ohio, President Donald Trump travelled to Florida in an attempt to win back disgruntled voters. From the rally in Sanford, Florida, here's our correspondent David Lipson.
He's beaten COVID-19. Now Donald Trump is fighting for his political life.
And I'm proud to be an American.
Back on the campaign trail just a week after being discharged from hospital.
One thing with me, the nice part, I went through it. Now they say I'm immune. I feel so powerful. I'll walk into that audience. I'll walk in there. I'll kiss everyone in that audience. I'll kiss the guys and the beautiful women and everybody. I'll just give you a big fat kiss.
Earlier at a socially distanced car rally, Joe Biden had another slip of the tongue when discussing his run for the presidency.
I'm running as a proud Democrat for the Senate, when I am running as a proud Democrat for vice president. And I'm running as a proud Democrat for president.
Now, Biden had a bad day. And he said, today he's a proud Democrat running for the US Senate. No, you can't do it.
His Florida supporters got what they came for.
So why choose Florida? Well, the president needs Florida to win a second term, and he needs seniors to win Florida. Almost 1 in 3 registered voters here are over 65.
4 years ago, seniors backed Trump with a 9% margin here. Many remain just as enthusiastic.
He's not a savior. We've got a savior. But the fact is that he is an inspiration.
But a run of polls suggests support has slipped for Donald Trump among the elderly.
I don't know any seniors that I know that have changed their mind.
Yeah.
For 4 years, Ed McGuinty has proudly parked his golf cart here. Now he says he's the most hated man in the villages.
And this guy rams the front of my golf cart and tries to push me out into the street.
And going by the rate of car horns, he's confident.
But you hear this. I mean, it's just people are really getting excited. The election's coming up, and they're really coming out for Biden.
Another reason Donald Trump chose Florida for the first of 4 campaign stops this week.
And we will make America great again. Thank you, Florida. Thank you very much.
The job of president is still up for grabs. David Lipson, ABC News, Sanford, Florida.
The fight for the next US Supreme Court judge has begun with hearings for the nominee, Amy Coney Barrett. 48-year-old Judge Coney Barrett arrived with her 7 children. The staunch Catholic told the Senate Judiciary Committee she would not let her conservative values impact her decision-making.
In every case, I have carefully considered the arguments presented by the parties, discussed the issues with my colleagues on the court, and done my utmost to reach the result required by the law, whatever my own preferences might be.
Protesters clashed outside the hearing. With a Republican majority in the Senate, the lifetime appointment is all but guaranteed.
The Senate majority is rushing this process and jamming President Trump's nominee through the Senate while people are actually voting.
The hearing was almost overshadowed by the presence of Republican Senator Mike Lee, who appeared in the packed room without a mask just 9 days after being diagnosed with COVID-19. Still to come this hour, inside the mind of the independent senator holding a highly prized vote in crucial contests.
I never used to have advisors up here. It's amazing how much more you can find out what is going on.
I refuse to be the vote that tells poor kids out there, might as well dream a little cheaper.
Let's put a spanner in the works.
And united in grief, the people joining a class action following Victoria's hotel quarantine debacle. That's coming up.
George Pell has met the Pope for the first time since the Cardinal's child sexual abuse convictions were overturned. It's not clear what they discussed, but the Vatican made no secret of the meeting, releasing the pictures to the world. Europe correspondent Nick Dole reports.
From a prison cell to a papal audience. With his convictions overturned by the High Court, Cardinal George Pell was welcomed back by the pontiff in a very public way.
The Pope is making a point in a way. It wasn't the Vatican which acquitted him, the highest court, and he served time in prison, and now, according to the Australian judicial system, he's a free man.
But he was criticised by the Royal Commission into Child Sexual Abuse, which found that nearly 40 years ago he knew that pedophile priest Gerard Ridsdale was being moved between parishes. Cardinal Pell denies that and disputes the Commission's finding.
It just seems like more of the same, so it is really disappointing. The Pope says that he is trying to change things, a new era, and this doesn't fit in with that.
Lovely to be back. Cardinal Pell returned to Rome a fortnight ago amid a financial scandal engulfing his Vatican rival, Cardinal Giovanni Angelo Becciu. Cardinal Pell has previously praised the Pope for sending his opponent packing. Pope Francis didn't have to meet Cardinal Pell, he chose to, and in doing so he told the Church and the world that he still believes the Australian has something to contribute.
Cardinal Pell is 79 years old, he will turn 80 next year. Once a cardinal reaches the age of 80, they can no longer hold church office, essentially. So anything that Cardinal Pell, any office he would be entrusted with, it would be a very short-term assignment.
Thank you. Whether he stays or goes, Cardinal Pell appears to have the Pope's blessing. Nick Dole, ABC News.
Britain is reopening the emergency hospitals it built 7 months ago during the first wave of coronavirus. In a desperate bid to prevent an even bigger second wave, the Prime Minister has unveiled a new 3-tier lockdown system.
Built during the first wave of infections and then forgotten over the summer, these so-called Nightingale hospitals are now being reopened once more.
They are being asked to mobilise over the next few weeks to be ready to accept patients.
Evidence has been steadily growing that the United Kingdom has lost almost all control over the virus. Recent data suggested as many as 22,000 people a day are developing COVID symptoms, and ICU admissions are on the rise.
If infections continue to rise, in just 4 more weeks, they could be treating more patients than they were during the peak of the first wave.
The Prime Minister warned the country of dark days ahead.
The number of cases has quadrupled in the last 3 weeks. There are now more people in hospital with COVID than when we went into lockdown on March the 23rd.
Boris Johnson unveiled a 3-tier system of local lockdowns, from mild restrictions on socialising to the closure of pubs and restaurants and an almost total ban on the mixing of households. But the PM is resisting any closure of schools or shops.
We would not only be depriving our children of their education, we would do such damage to our economy as to erode our long-term ability to fund the NHS and other crucial public services.
Britain has suffered one of the worst death tolls in the world, with more than 40,000 casualties already. Boris Johnson says he wants to prevent an intolerable number of deaths, but keep the economy alive.
There remain significant uncertainties, not just about whether this new alert system will work, but also about how Britain's hospitals will cope with the long, dark winter ahead. Linton Besser, ABC News, London.
Back home now, and Queensland's opposition leader has been named in a referral to the election watchdog by her own party over concerns about fundraising events during her campaign to become Premier. Liberal National Party sources have told ABC Investigations that Deb Frecklington went to multiple campaign events where property developers also attended, raising concerns about possible breaches of prohibited donor laws. But today, Ms Frecklington and the party denied she'd been referred to the Electoral Commission.
Politicians mix with and go to events with every manner of type of business people. The party routinely seeks advice from the ECQ because the donation laws that have been put in place by the Labor Party are complex.
Property developers are banned from making political donations in Queensland, but not prohibited from attending fundraisers if they don't donate. The New South Wales Premier has remained defiant in the face of a grilling over her personal judgment. Yesterday, Gladys Berejiklian revealed she'd been in a 5-year relationship with disgraced ex-MP Daryl Maguire. The former Wagga Wagga MP is the subject of a corruption inquiry into his business dealings. In State Parliament, the Premier stood firm over her assertion she's done nothing wrong.
I want to state unequivocally, Madam Deputy Speaker, that at all times I've acted in accordance with the highest levels of accountability.
Order! You think if you say it, it will be true?
Daryl Maguire is due to front the inquiry tomorrow. A plane load of fruit pickers from Vanuatu has arrived in Australia, but they may be too late to save the top end's mango season. The 162 workers landed in Darwin this morning, but will now have to quarantine for 2 weeks before hitting the harvest. Growers are desperate to get fruit off the trees, and industry groups are paying the quarantine fees and the nearly $100,000 cost of the charter flight. They want the federal government to intervene to get the workers to farms. To finance now, here's Alan Kohler.
The All Ordinaries Index is now decisively broken above the 6,300 level that's been acting as a temporary ceiling to reach a new 7-month high with a rise of close to 1%. Commonwealth Bank and Telstra both had their annual shareholder meetings today. CBA copped a 21% protest vote against its remuneration report, while Telstra chairman John Mullen tried placation, saying the board understood the importance of the dividend and would make sure they kept paying 16 cents a share. That worked. The share price jumped more than 4%. Other gains included health insurer NIB Holdings and data centre operator NextDC. The world's biggest company, Apple, led another advance in New York last night with a rise of 6.4%. But in dollar terms, last night's increase in the market value of Apple was greater than the total combined value of Commonwealth Bank and Telstra. Commodities mostly sank back again last night after yesterday's strong gains, and the Australian dollar has fallen back below 72 US cents. Now, there were 3,000 short-term visitor arrivals in August, down 500 or 14% from July, and down 99.6% from August last year. And this from ANZ Bank's monitoring of the money coming out of its bank accounts and credit cards. Australians are venturing out for dinner, except in Victoria, of course, but not yet for dinner and a show. And that's finance.
Finals fever is catching on in Queensland, where Brisbane Lions fans got the chance to secure their seats today to cheer on their team against Geelong on Saturday. Brittany Klein reports.
9 a.m. couldn't come any quicker.
Right, 7 minutes 29.
This office is always painted maroon, blue and gold.
Go Lions.
But when their beloved team is playing a preliminary final at home, it's an anxious wait to ensure everyone gets a seat.
Hey Kimmy, you got section 8, row B.
It's always nerve-wracking insofar as you just really hope that you're lucky enough to grab a ticket and be there for the boys.
They're counting down to Saturday night, and for the Lions, the circus in the lead-up's already started.
It's pretty special, I guess. It's a rugby state, and to have AFL up here, just to get the growth of the game.
But Brisbane's been in a similar position before, going down to the Giants in a semi last year.
It wasn't out of ill faith that we lost that game. It was a matter of us just trying too hard, sort of thing.
But they're only better for it, and keeping it simple was the ticket for Charlie Cameron against Richmond.
Charlie's on the move! Charlie! Oh, yes!
For me, it was just going out there and having fun.
Taking a step back helped the Lions break their 11-year, 15-game losing streak against the Tigers. The Geelong Cats will be their final test this weekend to secure the grand final fairy tale at home in front of Brisbane fans.
It's unbelievable when the crowd gets going. Charlie gets on a loose ball or something like that. It's spine-tingling. I'm shivering at the moment talking about it. So
this year, more than 29,000 members have been loyal to the Lions despite the unknown nature of the season due to COVID-19. If Brisbane makes the grand final, they'll be fighting it out for just 30,000 tickets at the Gabba. In the past, the MCG has hosted more than 3 times that.
Yeah, I'm going to need sedatives, I think, to be able to do this. Once-in-a-lifetime experience at the Gabba. I think we're all ready to pay top dollar for it.
Brittany Klein, ABC News.
The financial cost of the coronavirus continues to impact global sports, but esports are booming. Virtual cycling is one of several esports gaining momentum, setting benchmarks for gender equality along the road.
Jess Pratt can't wipe the smile off her face. The 22-year-old went from being a nurse in Brisbane to a pro cyclist in Europe with the Canyon SRAM team.
I sort of pinched myself. I was working in a ward as a brand new registered nurse and that sort of thing. I never imagined that I could turn professional. I'd nearly given up that dream.
Pratt won a virtual competition that gives amateurs the chance to win a professional racing contract.
We will see some unique athletes come out of this and take things to a world stage from their lounge room, living room.
There we go, Jess Pratt moving to the front.
It's opened new opportunities for Pratt. During lockdown, she took part in the world's first virtual Tour de France. She's also been named in the Australian team for the inaugural Cycling Esports World Championships in December, an elite competition that will be raced from competitors' homes. Like the virtual Tour de France, the World Championships will take place on the Zwift platforms. And the next goal? The 2028 Olympic Games. The cycling app has a reported value of more than $1 billion after it raised $625 million in funding from investors. This form of e-racing is also being hailed as a game changer for gender parity in sport.
What esports offers is absolute equality. So the women and men race equal distances. The broadcast is completely equal, as is the prize money.
Former world champion and Olympic cyclist Kate Bates runs a virtual cycling group for women. She says more women are becoming professional e-athletes.
You can now have maternity leave, you can have a normal career, and you can continue to be a professional athlete in a way that we've just never had access to.
A brave new world of esports where anyone can train to be a pro, anywhere and anytime they want. Daniela Rintilli, ABC News.
Time for the weather now. Here's Paul Higgins.
And Sam, while we had a bit of drizzle over Melbourne this morning, parts of Melbourne, it was drizzly and foggy in the Dandenongs, but tomorrow it'll be a different sort of day. The chilliest place in the state first thing was Rutherglen, dropping to 4 degrees. Drizzle and cloudy across the south this morning. In Portland, only reached 15 degrees, but around 500 kilometres north of there, a sunny 32 in Mildura. It stayed mostly cloudy across Melbourne, but a few sunny breaks in the south this afternoon. 16.6 the city high at 2:28 p.m. and in the backyard now 14. It was a sunny Tuesday in Brisbane, Adelaide and also Sydney, and a warm 30 across in Perth. Meanwhile, thunderstorms fired up across inland Queensland this afternoon near the line of a trough. You'll see them popping up there. There's another trough sitting in the nation's southwest. With this high moving east of us tomorrow, we're back into those warm north winds. Later on Thursday, a cold front, you can see it lurking down there, and trough will bring us some showers. But then if we jump forward to Friday, a few showers for Victoria. Saturday, a low is going to cross the state, bringing showers and storms. And depending on how long that low stays around, Sunday could be wet in our east. Back to tomorrow, Sydney and Canberra will be cloudy. In Perth, Hobart and Brisbane, partly cloudy. Adelaide should be mostly sunny. We're going to kick off Wednesday with patches of fog. It'll be warmer tomorrow across southwestern Victoria and up to 34 degrees in Mildura. Cloud increasing from the west, a shower or two about the eastern ranges in the morning, and then possible afternoon thunderstorms in the northwest, spreading to northern and western areas. On the bay, a north to northeasterly wind to 15 knots and sea breezes in the afternoon. Strong winds on the central coast and the East Gippsland coast. Well, cloudy in Melbourne tonight, a low of 9. Tomorrow we could see fog or low cloud in the morning. It'll lift as the morning goes on to leave us with a partly cloudy day, although cloud increasing again later. A high of 24, that's 7 higher than today. A northerly breeze and bayside sea breezes. Cloudy on Thursday, afternoon and evening showers, 25. It's interesting, it's got stuck. There we go. Friday, a morning shower to 19. Saturday, cloudy, a few showers, possible afternoon thunderstorms and a north wind, 21. Sunday, more showers and a moderate southerly wind, 18. A shower or two on Monday, Tam.
Thanks, Paul. That's it for this evening's bulletin. Lee Sales is up next with 7:30.